Great. Good evening, students. Welcome to the live coaching classes organized by Board of Studies ICAI. This evening, we are going to study on this topic called Advanced Routing under GST, along with the topic called Liability to pay taxes under GST law. There is a subtopic called Liability to pay taxes under GST law. So these are the two topics which we are going to have today's evening discussion. And as a protocol, students, I would like to have a confirmation from some of you who have been watching me on live with respect to visibility of my presentation, availability of a proper audio, and also video. I would like students to download today's presentation material. There are two PowerPoint presentations. Along with these two PowerPoint, I have also given one Excel file which consists of all our day-to-day discussion aspects. So let me have a couple of confirmation from you so that we can go ahead with our today's topic for discussion. And I could see that Namita has come with a big bang of questions as usual. Good to see your questions, Namita. Like I see that you have been reading regularly the indirect taxation discussion, what we have been doing. Topic to topic and minute aspects of this topic you have been examining in the institute material. So students, what I will do, let me okay, I haven't received any confirmation from any of you with regards to availability of this video. Yeah, I have a couple of confirmations. Thanks Naveen and Priya for the confirmation. Great. Just give me a minute. Yes. So, yeah. Let me start with my recap. So, as a regular thing, what we do, we will have a quick discussion for 10 to 15 minutes on the topics what we have already discussed. We'll have a quick recap of those provisions with a practical problem, and then we'll come back to today's discussion on the topic concerned. And Namita, wait for this recap of the problems. We will have answers for the problems which I have set in this Excel file. Then I'll come back to answer your questions one by one, Namita. And yes. So first question for today's discussion. This question says, yeah, there's a Mrs. XYZ and Co. have supplied goods worth rupees 75,000, GST applicable at the rate of 12% to Mrs. Buyer and Co. So there is a supply of goods by a particular person called XYZ, who is the seller, and a person who is buying is called Buyer and Co. Mrs. XYZ and Co. are registered in the state of Tamil Nadu. So this party XYZ has registered themselves in the state of Tamil Nadu. Mrs. Buyer and Co. are registered in the state of Haryana. So supplier is from Tamil Nadu and buyer is from Haryana. Goods are picked up by Mrs. Buyer and Co. from the factory of Mrs. XYZ and Co. Examine the place of supply. So in this given scenario, the registered buyer, that is Buyer and Co., they have come to the premises of Mrs. XYZ and Co. and from there the goods have been picked up. So here the supplier who is selling the goods have to examine the place of supply. So what would be the place of supply? Is it the state of Haryana? Sorry, is it the state of Tamil Nadu where the seller is located? Is it Haryana where the buyer is situated? Now, please keep in mind, you can put your answers with the reason. You can put your answer in the question window with your justification. Possibility could be there that this particular buyer and company could have purchased in the state of Tamil Nadu, could have taken back to Haryana. Or this company, Buyer and Co., in the midway from traveling from South India to say Haryana, that is towards north direction, they would have sold the goods in the state of Telangana. They would have sold somewhere in Maharashtra. Anything could be possible. So what would be our answer? how do we determine the place of supply? I could see a couple of answers. Namita says place of supply is Tamil Nadu. Naveen says the place of supply is Haryana. Why is it so Tamil Nadu, Namita? What could be the reason that it is Tamil Nadu? What could be the reason? Now, Naveen, your answer is correct. Before we go in for examination, always in the examination, give your answer with a proper reasoning. So here what you will say, reference to section 10 of IGST Act 2017. So my IGST Act, which has got a provision that is section 10 and section 11. Section 10 deals with place of supply of goods other than import or export. Section 11 deals with the provision in relation to import of goods into India or export of goods out of India. So here my provision is connected with my section 10, right? Now, moving further, as per section 10, my place of supply in relation to movement of goods, where there is a transfer of title to the goods before or in the process of movement of the goods, in relation to a supply to a registered person, shall be the place of business of such third person. There is a provision of section 10, subsection 1, section 10, subsection 1, clause B. Supply of goods. Goods are delivered by the supplier to recipient or agent or any other person. Before or after movement of, before or during the movement of goods. In that scenario, my place of supply shall be principal place of business of such registered person, such person. So here, since the registered person, that is buyer and co, have registered themselves in the state of Haryana, my place of supply shall be Haryana. Why? If you refer to section 16, subsection 2, availment of input tax credit in the hands of buyer. Now, in this scenario, students, 75,000 is the value of goods. On that, 18% happens to be GST. Sorry. 75,000 into something is a problem. 75,000 into 18%. This happens to be my invoice value. Now here, assuming that transporter picked the goods on, say, 30th Jan 2021. 30th Jan 2021. Material reach the factory of Mrs. Bayer and Co. on 2nd of Feb 2021. Now, this one problem, look from multiple angles. Now, one from the invoice seller point of view, second from the buyer point of view. So, invoice, tax invoice dated, tax invoice issued on 30th Jan 2021. Now, this is a transaction where the supplier handed over the goods to the transporter on 30th Jan. The material is going to reach the factory of Bayer and Co on 2nd Feb 2021. Now here, if you look from input tax credit point of view, the question comes, can the buyer and co avail input tax credit on the basis of a tax invoice which was handed over to the transporter? A soft copy of this invoice has been reached to the premises of buyer and co. So as on 31st Jan 2021, can buyer and co claim the ITC? Answer is a big yes. Reason, when you look into the provisions of section 16 subsection 2, where the goods are handed over to a person, there is an explanation given. It shall be deemed that registered person has received the goods where goods are delivered by the supplier to a recipient or any other person on the directions of such person. So here, transporter, you recollect that relationship between transporter and the buyer, bailer, bailee. So here, the transporter who has received the goods, this transporter is acting as a bailee. The moment the transporter has received the goods, applying the provisions under section 16, subsection 2, it is deemed that this gentleman, buyer and co, has received the goods. So here, students, what you will do? You will apply the provisions of 10(1)(b), where the goods are delivered to a transporter at the instructions of buyer and co. It is deemed that the buyer and co has received the goods. So from ITC point of view, I'll take care of under section 16. From place of supply point of view, 10(1)(b) says that the principal place of business of such person, who is that such person? Buyer and co. Since buyer and co is registered in the state of Haryana, my place of supply happens to be Haryana. So this is the answer to your first question. Now, Geeta says goods are picked up only from Tamil Nadu. Now, goods have been picked up from Tamil Nadu, Geeta. This goods from Tamil Nadu, South India, has to travel to North India. It has to reach this place called Haryana. Now, the moment there is a transfer, this transfer happens where goods are not getting consumed. There is a movement of goods. Now, in this case, there is a movement of goods. Namita, I come to your point also, ma. When you look at a problem, look at the transaction. Was there a movement of goods? Was there no movement of goods? Right? Now, in this case, how do you know that there is a movement of goods? Because the transporter has picked the material from the premises of this particular gentleman. Now, because the goods are picked up, now there is a movement of goods from that particular supplier's place to the recipient place. Now, there could be a possibility that goods are consumed. Like example, you have ice cream. Now, you buy an ice cream at a shop, you're going to consume that ice cream at that particular place. It cannot so happen. Now, exceptional cases are your Delhi, Gurugram, and Noida. Now, these are all borders. I could have purchased ice cream from ice cream parlor in Union Territory, Delhi. I could have taken to my factory in Gurugram. Now, from Delhi to Gurugram, there is a distance of, say, 2 kilometers or, say, 5 kilometers. Geographically, I'm not that great, but I know that Gurugram is closer to Delhi. Now, what if goods are purchased from the seller's factory and taken to the buyer's factory? Now, those are the situations it talks about my consumption which is happening outside. Now, was there a movement of goods? Was there no movement of goods? In this particular problem, because there is a movement of goods, I presume that goods have been carried and I go with provisions of 10(1)(b), right? Now, if there is no consumption which is happening at the factory gate, then we can go with the availability of goods. That is where there is no movement of goods. Moving further, let me see if there are any further discussion on this point. Tamil Nadu has goods involve movement. So where it movements terminates is place of supply, it is Tamil Nadu. As a movement ends on factory gate. The movement does not end at Tamil Nadu, Namita, because this buyer and co from the Haryana, he has to take it back. Movement is not terminating. Namita, you cannot isolate the transaction and say the movement got terminated. Now, if you read 10(1)(a), where the supply involve movement of goods, whether by the supplier or recipient, the place of supply shall be, the goods shall be location of the goods at the time. Location of the goods at the time where the moment of goods terminate for delivery. Now here, the termination did happen in Tamil Nadu. The moment happened, it got terminated in Haryana. Right? Now, in case if the responsibility is on the seller. So what if the responsibility is on the buyer? I go with 10(1)(b) and I apply the provisions of 10(1)(b). Moving further. Second question. From this information, identify the net input tax credit for claiming a refund under Rule 89 by Mrs. ABC and Co. for the period Jan 2021. So when they have given this information, relevant period is Jan 2021. This is my relevant period. Always keep in mind, when I look at the formula for refund, numerator by denominator multiplied by input tax credit. My input tax credit should always be restricted to a particular relevant period. So here, my relevant period is only for 1 month. Please keep in mind, students, a relevant period could be 1 month, a quarter, 6 months, or a 1 full year. Based on the period they have in consideration, we have to take that into consideration, right? Now, for ease of convenience, I'll use on the left-hand side of my screen, where I'll say, I'll just mention ITC available, ITC eligible. I'll say whether this ITC is eligible, yes or no, amount net ITC. Then I'll consider what is the amount of ITC I have to take into consideration. So here, point number 1, purchase of laptop as a part of CSR activity for 10 members. The IGST was paid for rupees 85,000. So when I have purchased a laptop, which is meant for CSR activity, can I claim the input tax credit? Can I claim the input tax credit? Naveen, in this example number 1, because the goods are getting terminated in the state of Haryana, from buyer's perspective, this termination happens in Haryana, place of business of Haryana will be taken into consideration. Naveen. Now, with respect to point number 1, I have purchased laptop, part of my corporate social responsibility. Now, this is a firm, assuming that they have a policy. As per their firm policy, they need to spend some money on some corporate social responsibility. So they have purchased some 10 laptops on which 85,000 was paid as IGST. Is the input tax credit eligible, available? Yes or no? If available, yes. If not available, why is it not available? Namita, that's what I'm saying, man. When there is a movement, don't look only from the seller's perspective. You have to read from both the point of view. Where there is a movement, whether by supplier or recipient. Namita, you're reading only just the portion which you are happy to read. When you read 10(1)(a), look at that clause carefully, the phrase which was used, where the supply involve movement of goods. Now, where the supply involve movement of goods. If you read further, whether by supplier or recipient, just underline that phrase, whether by supplier or recipient. Now, looking at that phrase, Namita, it could be in the hands of supplier, it could be in the hands of recipient. From there, now read afresh. You'll get the answer to that, Namita. Now, I have a couple of answers. Akshay says, not eligible, as it is not for business. CSR is not for business purpose, so it is not eligible. Naveen also gives the answer. And Namita says laptop ITC is available. I think Namita is going against the tides to test her knowledge on this concept. Let us look at this. See, when I look into section 16, section 17, my inward supply is in relation to making an outward supply, other than outward supply. Students, when you read your input tax chapter, whatever inward supply is there, I have two choices. I can use it for furtherance of business. I can use it for other than business. I can use it for my furtherance of business. I can use it for other than my furtherance of business. Now, in case of these laptops which I have purchased, I am going to distribute as a free items. Where is the furtherance of business? I made my business. Part of my business, I made some profit. I have a policy. Part of that profit, I need to spend on some social activity. So when I have purchased laptops, it is not in relation to advancement of business. So from that point, Namita, answer ITC eligible, I would say no. And what is the net ITC? I'll say 0. This is my net ITC for laptop. Now moving further. Point number 2. Services received from Happy Hotel and Company towards Founders Day celebration. So there is a event called Founders Day. So this particular entity, ABC & Co., they have did this celebration in a hotel. And this hotel has given a bill where they have charged GST of 30,000. Now, further, some information was given in this regard. What do they say? This bill, what has been given, it consists of food expenses, which is attributable to 25% of the bill value. So they have mentioned that out of the bill amount, some amount was spent on account of food. And what is the value of food? They have given 25%. Now, first question, is the input tax of 30,000 eligible? Yes or no? If you say yes, can it take entire 30,000 or should it take 75% of 30,000? If you say no, why is it not eligible? Give me your answers. Naveen has got one more logic to attribute to laptop. I appreciate your logic, Naveen. Naveen says that goods which are given away by way of goods lost, stolen, destroyed, written off, disposed of by way of gift or free sample. In case if the goods are given as free sample under section 17 subsection 5, ITC is blocked. Your logic is absolutely correct, Naveen. Like instead of traveling to 17.5, look at it 17.1 itself, Naveen. I completely agree with your logic. When I start with the first provision under section 17, it is used meant for business other than business. There itself, I try to segregate two windows. And going further under 17.5, even that logic strengthens your argument. So I completely agree with you, Naveen. Geeta says ITC is available in laptop. Geeta, all along, this is what we have been discussing. Input tax in relation to laptop, because it is not meant for furtherance of business, no ITC is eligible. Section 17, subsection 1, read with subsection 5. So this ITC on laptop is not eligible, Geeta. Point number B, Akshay has got an answer. So we are end consumer of service, so ITC cannot be claimed. Yes, there is a Founders Day celebration, Akshay. This entity called ABC & Co., they have gone in, they have hired a particular hotel called Happy Hotels. So in the process of their celebration, they have spent some money on food and beverages. So the cost incurred on food is 25% of the total amount paid. So accordingly, my input tax needs to be tested. Yes, Namita, your focus is only to that point. I'm saying it is not correct. You need to focus from the both ends. Read from both ends. Then you'll get a right answer. Now, students, in relation to Founders Day. Now it is part and parcel of my business. See, I have to have my employees happy. I need to have my customers happy. I need to have my vendors happy. I have to incur certain expenses which are integral part of my business. Now, when there is a Founders Day celebration, can someone say that, no, it is not your activity in relation to business? Under income tax, under indirect tax. Look at from this angle. So this particular, just for discussion purpose, the manager comes with a bill of, say, 2,50,000. Now, when a bill for 2,50,000 is accounted in my books, says Founders Day celebration. Under income tax, can I disallowed that expense? Now it is an essential expense. Now, in memory of the founder who has laid on the stepping stone for this business and who has nurtured the management, who has developed the business to a particular stage where the organization is running on its own, there should be some tribute paid back to that person. So it is essential, like it is one of the major expense. Why? It boosts the morale of the employees. It helps the employees to recognize where they come from. It helps the people to understand what sort of organization they have been associated with. So income tax point of view, I will say it is a genuine expense. Now, when it comes to the indirect taxation, now is it meant in relation to business? I would say it is in advancement of my business. I would say now I have to keep my people associated with me happy. There, these expenses are in relation to advancement of business. So here I will say that my input tax in relation to this particular hotel expenses, that is Founders Day celebration, is available. So answer, I will say yes. However, under section 17, subsection 5, there's a small disallowance in relation to food and beverages. Section 17, subsection 5 clearly sets aside my ITC in relation to food and beverages. So here answer, ITC eligibility, yes, partial. And how much is ITC available? I'll just combine both aspects, students. I'll say 30,000 into 2, that is CGST, SGST, into 0.75. Why 0.75? 25% is in relation to food and beverage. This 25% is blocked credit under section 70, right? So instead of 60,000, I take 75% of 60,000, which comes to 45,000. This is my input tax credit in relation to point number B. Let me see if there are any doubts on this point number B. Geeta says, not for furtherance of business, no input tax credit. Namita also says, for 2B, it is not available. Naveen says, 17.5, block credit any food and catering service received to be used provided the same category of service. Now, whatever explanation I have given so far in relation to Founders Day, hope you are happy with that explanation. Only block credit. What you have blocked? My 17.5 food and beverage. So to the extent of food and beverage, I am blocking. The other, now with respect to say Founders Day, I conduct some motivational session. I conduct education, like how it started, what principles they had, from where they have started their operations, as on today, how they have been. But they have been showing to the employees, which is as good as a training day. So considering all this summation, I would say input tax is eligible, but what is straight away shown as ineligible under 17.5, to that extent, I'll block my credit. So here, food alone is blocked under 17.5. Hope this logic is clear, all of you. Moving on further. Point number 3. Point number 3. Purchase of raw material and consumables. I have purchased my raw material and consumables where I have paid IGST 1,25,000, CGST 84, SGST 84,000. One consignment has been received on 5th February, that is IGST paid to the extent of 10,000. Now here, this is a transaction in relation to purchase of goods which is used in relation to my business. Now here we have to make an assumption. I'll just make an assumption. Outward supply of goods and services are taxable under GST for ITC availment. Now, if the outward supply is exempt, then I would not be eligible. Exception is zero rated supply. Assuming that my outward supply of goods and services is taxable, I make an assumption. So here, I'll say ITC is eligible, yes. And how much is the ITC available? I'll have 1,25,000 plus 84,000 into 2. Now, can you take entire 2,93,000? Answer is no, sir. Section 16 says To avail my input tax credit, I should have received goods and services. Here in point number C, there is a consignment which has been actually received on 5th February. Now, assuming that the goods have been received where the risk and rewards got transferred only on 5th February, to that extent, that 10,000 I'll exclude. So I'll say minus 10,000. Minus 10,000. This is answer 2,83,000 for point number C. Next, moving on. Let me see if there is any discussion in relation to point number C. Section 16, goods must have been received, so CGST. Now we have to club how much is ineligible, that we have to set aside, Naveen. That is the important point we need to take into consideration. Then point number D. Services received from an architect in relation to factory shed construction. Rupees 1,45,000 CGST, 1,45,000 SGST. What would be your view? Can I claim IDC? The factory shed, is it in relation to business? Yes or no? Answer is yes. Can I claim input tax credit of rupees 1,45,000, 1,45,000, 2,90,000? Can I claim the ITC factory shed? Yes, Namita, your point is valid. So with respect to clause D, what is the input tax credit I can take? What is IDC I can take? Now, in relation to 1,45,000, 1,45,000, this is in relation to construction. Naveen says 17.5 blocks the input tax credit in relation to immobile property. ITC is available. Now, Akshay says ITC available under capital goods. Now, Akshay, this is a capital expenditure. Like Naveen was mentioning, this capital expenditure is in relation to immobile property. The moment it is in relation to immobile property, my input tax credit is blocked, Akshay. Naveen, your answer is right, ma'am. Answer is ITC available? Answer is no. And I'll say 0. Why? Under section 17, subsection 5, input tax credit in relation to civil works for construction is not allowed. Next, security services. I have paid CGST 22,500, SGST 22,500 under reverse charge mechanism. Is the input tax credit available? Answer is yes. Can I claim the ITC? Answer is yes. So I'll say yes. And how much is the input tax credit? 22,500 into 2. So how much is the net ITC for the purpose of my section 54 read with rule 89? My answer will be 3,73,000. Students, examination, you have to do this calculation where question will be tested for 4 marks from ITC point of view, read with your reference point of view. So section 16, section 17, section 54, rule 89. These all provisions together, right? Next, moving on. Third question. Compute the turnover of zero-rated services under Rule 89, Sub-Rule 4 for the relevant period April 20 to June 20. Here, my relevant period is April 20 to June 20. Now, so what they want the turnover of zero-rated supply services under Rule 89. There is one formula. I don't know how many of you remember. Let me just show you that formula. Yeah, this is a formula what we have discussed the other day. My turnover for the purpose of Rule 89 is foreign currency received during the relevant period less invoices issued during the relevant period for which money was received in advance prior to the relevant period, less advances received in the relevant period for which no invoice has been issued. So let me just copy this formula. Now, I'll just copy this formula over here. And relevant period happens to be April 20 to June 20. Here I'll say April to June 20. April to June 20, prior to April 20, advances received in the period April to June 20, for which no invoice has been issued in the period April to June 20. So this is a formula where in relation to export of services, they are not concerned with your turnover. Now, here what happened? There was a tax invoice issued during April to June, 3 months, April, May, June. For three months period, I have raised an invoice for 34,50,000. Ideally, I have to consider this as my turnover. But when I file my refund application, the department is not looking at your actual billing. The department is correlating your transaction with money which was realized in foreign currency. Money released in foreign currency. So why do I do that? Because my benefits of export of services, if you recollect, it says your place of supply should be outside India. Supplier should be in India. Money should have been received in convertible foreign currency, except where there's a permission of RBI to receive money in INR. Exception is Nepal and Bhutan. So in this case, when I say export of services, one of the conditions is money to be realized. So here the test under Rule 89 is what money you have received in foreign currency, I take that into consideration. So for that, there is a formula. What it says, foreign currency received during April to June period. So money received during April to June. Let us examine the given transactions. Point number A, tax invoice raised during April to June. The billing April to June, what was the invoices I have issued? 34.5 lakhs. This is all in relation to foreign transaction. Point number B, receipt of money in convertible foreign currency during April to June. So in this block period called April to June, I received actually 26 lakhs. Now, students, when you look at A and B, actual services exported 34 lakhs. B, money received 26 lakhs. Don't jump into conclusion looking at B. Reason, this 26 lakhs may include advances for services to be done. This 26 lakhs may include money for the services rendered during the current period. Point number C, money received during Jan 20 to March 20 for the bills raised as per A. Now what happened here? I have received money in advance. When did I receive? During Jan to March. That is Q4 of 1920. I have received 8,45,000 during the previous quarter. Clause D, money received in advance out of B. Now when you look at this 26 lakhs, they say, boss, you received 26 lakhs, of which 2,25,000 is a money received in advance. Now, this is what they have said. So blindly, if I go with the formula, foreign currency received April to June. I have received money inflow of 26 lakhs. To that, what they say, they are saying me to add. What is that I have to add? The invoices issued during this relevant period, April to June. For this, money was received in advance. So April to June, whatever bills I have raised, for this period, already I have received money, for which now I am raising an invoice. So here, this is connected with my money received during Jan to what? Jan to March. This is the point connected with this clause. So here what I do, I'll add 8,45,000 less advances received in April to June for which no service was rendered. Now the GST law says that, Praveen, when you are not rendered any service, why should I give you a refund? So that portion of money out of 26 lakhs, you set aside. So what I'll do here, I'll just remove minus 2,25,000. So my net turnover, therefore, turnover of zero rated supply of services for the relevant period. What I'll do, I'll add is equal to sum of 2,25,000, 8,45,000, 26 lakhs. I get a figure of 32,20,000. So this is my turnover. What actually, as per sale register, I have shown 34,50,000. But actually, for the purpose of refund, that is Rule 89, I take into consideration only 32,20,000. So this is a calculation for examination. Again, this would be tested for 4 marks in relation to your turnover calculation. Akshay, you have mentioned 19,80,000. Namita says 34,45,000. You can see the calculation here, 32,20,000. Hope this is clear for Akshay and Namita. There's a slight change in your figures, ma. Both Akshay and Namita, your answers are not matching with the actual answer derived. The actual answer is 32,20,000. So these are certain questions which I have thought as a food for thought for today's discussion. Right now, there are some questions which are posted by Namita before we started our conversation. These questions are in relation to the previous classes what we have discussed. I'll just take quickly those questions and then we'll start with our today's topic for discussion. Starting with, Namita is asking this question. If Mr. A gives a wrong address or Mr. A refuses to accept the order, then what date of communication of appellate authority order, communication of appellate authority order, adjudicating authority, sorry. What is the date of communication of adjudication authority? Now, question is valid, practical also. The question is very practical in nature. See, what happens, like I'll give you an example where we come across this situation. Under VAT era, under service tax, there were instances where, section 73, section 74. When you read section 73, time limit for issuing a show cause notice, time limit for passing an order under 73. Now, under section 73, 3 months prior to the due date for issuing an order, I have to issue a show cause notice. So assuming that today happens to be 1st February, just for our discussion purpose, 1st February is the cutoff date for financial year 17-18. Now what happens? The officer wants to keep this case alive. So officer sends a Sipai. No, Sipai is a person who is as good as a messenger. This Sipai goes door to door for the purpose of handing over physically the show cause notice, or it may be order copy. Now, order copy, Namita, generally this disagreement or non-acceptance doesn't come into picture. In case there was a hurriness to issue a show cause notice, I don't want to accept that show cause notice. Generally, what will happen? The Sipai will give at the factory gate, that is security, and he'll take a signature of security and he'll go off. Now, that is the cases where communication made and there was an acknowledgement received, which you cannot argue. Now, the question comes from Namita is, so what if Mr. A has given a wrong address? Now, if address was given wrongly and that particular order has been duly served upon, you cannot argue with the department, sir, this order was not served upon me. As per section 25, when I take a registration, it is my duty to intimate my change of address on the GST portal. If I have not updated GST address, whatever address is available with the officer on the date of passing the order, they will definitely pass on that particular address. If at all, if there is a change of address, they'll come back and rectify that particular thing. So what is provisional? Provisional which is not actual. Provisional which is not at par with the GST provisions. It is just an estimate which is likely to change at a later point in time. Next question from Namita. Sir, in example, page number 22.6 of Institute material, on 23rd July, 6 months ends will end. So how application filed on 3rd July is a delayed application? Page number 22.6, students. Namita is asking about a question in relation to adjudication authority. When there is an order passed on 23rd January, communicated the same day to commissioner, the commissioner directs his subordinate officer to file a review application with adjudicating authority. No, with the appellate authority till 23rd June. Now, under section 107, if you recollect, students, 3 months is the time limit for a assessee. 3 plus 3, 6 months is the time limit for department. So here, my 23rd January, 6 months ends on 23rd July, right? However, the application could be filed only on 3rd July. 3rd July is within the due date. the adjudicating authority can condone the delay in filing the appeal. There is a calculation mistake, Namita. I made a note of this point. It should be read as 23rd July, Namita. Assuming after 23rd July, the application was filed on 4th August. Then the answer is correct. Point is valid, Namita. There's a small correction. We will get it rectified. Thanks for bringing it to our attention. Then, further question. Sir, in appeal, how appellate authority can issue a show cause notice under 73 or 74 as it is passed by the proper officer? In an appellate, AEA, adjudicating authority. No, I didn't get your question, Namita. Can you elaborate a little more? Further, there is one more question, the last question from Namita. Sir, in revision, RA, period of 3 years, I think you're referring to section 108, okay? In relation to section 108, where there is a revisional authority who can revise the order. What is your question? Pending before High Court or Supreme Court is excluded. In any matter decided by High Court or Supreme Court is not in any ways revised by RA. Why is this period excluded for 3 years? Little technical. For the benefit of now other students, I'll elaborate this question once again. There is a time limit for revision of a order, right? Section 108. Always backdoor entry is 108. Now what happens? So there is a appeal. This appeal was settled in favor of the department or in the favor of assessee. Whoever is a aggrieved party, they go for an appeal. For a moment, let us assume that there is an order passed by the department, that is appellate authority. Appellate authority passed an order in favor of Namita. Akshay happens to be the departmental representative. Now, Akshay is not happy with the order passed by appellate authority. Akshay goes in for High Court, or it is from tribunal, he goes to High Court. So what this 108 says, till the matter is settled by High Court, this 3 years will not be counted. Assuming for a moment, High Court passed an order, and this order also is in the favor of Namita. Now, where I can invoke this 108, Namita, I can use this provisions of 108 on the topics, on the subjects which were not discussed in the appellate authority, which were not discussed, which were not reviewed in the adjudication level. Ideally, there could be some, see, as and when we progress with the law, we come to understand the law in a different version. We understand the law in a different angle. Now, what if there is an order passed by High Court, a new interpretation comes into picture? That interpretation gives a strength to the department to reopen that particular file. That is how they use this mechanism. This is just a backdoor entry for any mistakes which are not identified. So that is how they use this powers under 108, Namita. Now, let's start with our today's discussion, advanced ruling under GST law. Now, as a brief backdrop, why should we read this topic called advanced ruling? What is the benefit one has got on this topic called advanced ruling? This advanced ruling is set in a backdrop where there is a clarity which is missing under GST law. I don't know, should I pay GST? I don't know who has to pay GST. So whenever there is a clarification which is required, I can use this as a tool for the purpose of seeking a clarity. It's a clarification. So whenever I say clarification, a question is asked, I get an answer for the question. So it could be legal aspects. Now, having registered, a guidance is required on key complaints issues. As a registered person, you want to know what sort of complaints you have to do. Sir, I have sold this pen. I have sold this pen. When I have sold this pen, I want to know what is the GST I have to charge on this. When I have sold this pen, I want to know what is the classification applicable for this pen. So why are you, if question comes, why are you so worried? You're just selling a pen. You can call this as a pen. So this businessman comes and says, sir, it looks like a pen, but it has got a memory chip. whatever I write using the pen, it gets registered in this memory chip. So it has got a capability of reading what all data was read. Now, is it just a pen? No, sir. This pen has got a torchlight. This pen has got a normal functionality of writing. This pen has got a memory chip. This pen has got a torchlight. I can, in the night time, I can use as a torchlight. Now, these are the functions I have. So now when I go to the department, is it an electronic device? Is it a gadget? Is it an ordinary pen? Is it a recording device? Is it a light? Now, this is how I don't know what should I do. If I call this as a pen, I just need to pay 5%. If I call this as a recording device, I have to pay say 18%. If I call this as a light, which is having so much of power consumption, I would charge 12%. So when there is the various rates applicable, I don't know. I can think of going for an advanced ruling. Measures taken by the lawmaker for benefiting the trade and industry. Now, see, always, it's easy to complain on someone. But imagine for a moment you sit on the other side, you happen to frame this law. Look at the way how complex the system is going to be. Just for a moment, who are listening to me, just for a moment, say you have been given an opportunity of drafting the provisions of input tax credit. They ask you, say, like say Akshay or Geeta or Namita, say all three of you have been called together to form a team. They've asked you, Akshay, Namita and Geeta, please formulate the input tax credit norms. Now, imagine you have to write a law for input tax credit. What if I, as a businessman, I come from telecom industry. My telecom industry is so complicated, I will say, look, I have to put towers. I have to buy electronic items. I have to do some civil work. I put a network. After I get a approval from TRI, I start distributing services. I have some agents where I have to give some items as my distribution points. Now I have to give some support devices for me to have this network. I share my network as a bandwidth with some other industry. Now, industry point of view, if you see, a lot of complexity comes when it comes to frame a law which caters to all the businessmen at large. So here, government felt whenever I have a responsibility casted on me that I have to administer the tax, let me give a supporting hand. How I support the trade industry on some of the legal aspects to answer their questions by way of a clarification. So this is a measure. A nominal fees is collected to make an application for making it an easy process. For a moment, look at this way, students. Say you have to visit Germany for doing some higher education. Say part of your academics, you're very good in interpretation. There is an exchange program between the Indian government and say Germany government. What they have said, look, you send your brightest students to Germany to read the tax laws, to read the constitutional aspects and analyze how the laws are functioning. The same way, some students are exchanged from Germany to India to read how the laws are framed, to see how economic decisions are made. Now, this happens once in a while. Like, I have one of my friend who has actually gone on an exchange program to European nations to study their policy making. It is so powerful way you get some sort of clarity. For a minute, sitting in India, you are visiting over there for purpose of some business purpose. You try to get some leads over there, or you give some services over there. Now, while coming back, like you go with your handbag with some tools in it. You go to Germany, you visit the customer premises, you do some sort of brainstorming, you give some design. While coming back, the customer is very happy with you. He gives back 1 lakh euros. So when you come back with 1 lakh euros, you'll not be sent free with a free hand. There's a customs at European nation. They'll ask, you came empty hand with a tool bag. You're going back with a tool bag with a bag of 1 lakh euros. Why shouldn't you pay tax? Now, what if I have to appoint a consultant in Europe? in Germany, I have to pay maybe say $100 or 150 American dollars, or maybe 200 euros. It is quite costly. Rather, sitting at my home, sitting at my desk, I can just log into the government portal. I can just file my question. They respond back. Say you just pay €1, which is very, very economical. Similarly, this advanced ruling is a mechanism where with a nominal fee, all your questions can get clarified. This ruling, sir, can be altered at the request of the applicant considering the changes in the facts of legal pronouncements. Now, any advanced ruling which was given, as the law gets advanced, if there is any change, I can go back to the officer and say, my dear officer, look, this is a clarification you have given. Does this clarification holds good? Today, 1st Feb 2022 happens to be a day where there was a budget presentation by Honorable Finance Minister. As and when the law gets amended, I always can go back to the officer concerned. My dear officer, look, this is a clarification you have given. This clarification, does it hold good as on today? Say in 2018, I come to your office, you gave this clarification. 2022, I don't know what changes have taken place. I go back to the officer and ask, does this hold good? I have to question to them. So this is what I need to understand from this topic called advanced ruling under GST law. Now, before we get into this topic, I felt let us make an attempt from the mythology, this story called Ramayana. Now, most of you would have seen this epic called Ramayana. You watch it for 10 times, you watch it for 50 times, you watch it for 85 times. You never get bored. Ramayana is such a beautiful story. Whoever recites, whenever you watch this particular, the movies on this epic called Ramayana, you get a thrill and you enjoy watching that particular Ramayana. So what I have done, I just took one example from a couple of kandas of Ramayana, just to correlate that particular mythology to our advanced ruling concept. So all of you are aware that there are 7 kandas in Ramayana, starting from Ayodhya Kanda till Yuddha Kanda. Now, all of you are aware this Ayodhya Kanda, where this story starts, like this king called Dashrath. He doesn't have sons, he does Putra Kamishta Yaga, where he will be blessed with the 4 children, Rama, Bharata, Lakshmana, Shatrugna. And these 4 sons are blessed to Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra. In the process of this, getting up the children, there's a sage called Maharshi Vasistha. Vasistha Maharshi is the person who gave the basic training of Puranas and the fighting worship, and all this basic training was given by Maharshi Vasistha. So it so happens that as the story gets advanced to Aranya Kanda, where this lady called Kaikeyi, she has got a maid, we will say wicked servant. There is a wicked servant called Mandara. This Mandara says that Kaikeyi, look, Rama has been chosen as a son to take the position of Dashrath. Why shouldn't we think of getting it to Bharata? Look, you have 2 boons which were given by this king Dashrath. Why don't you ask those 2 boons, 2 promises which instead given? So first she says you exile Rama 14 years to the forest. And second choice, she wants this Bharata to take the throne of Rama. Now, left with no choice, Rama goes to Vanavasa. Along with him, we know that Lakshmana and Sita also goes. In the 14 years journey, the last year of their journey, where Aranya Kanda, we call that as Aranya Kanda. When the 13th year, this Rama, Lakshmana and Sita, when they travel to the south of India, those days, the southern part of the land, they come to these rivers of Godavari. In the bank rivers of Godavari, there is a place called Panchavati, where they make their cottage and they stay. That's where this entire story of your Aranyakanda and Kishkindakanda gets started. Kishkindakanda, you love, like, there is a place called Kishkinda in the southern part of India. In Karnataka, you can see that particular place. I don't know how many of you have visited this place. When you visit Kishkinda, to your surprise, you see all varieties of monkeys in that particular place. This is, many people say that this is a place of birth of Lord Hanuman. When you happen to visit this Kishkinda, you really feel that that epic still resides, because you see a lot of monkeys even as of today in this particular place. Coming back, so here the place where Rama goes behind this golden deer, and this Maricha, he is the person who comes in the disguise of a golden deer, where Ravana comes and takes away Sita from Panchavati. Now this place, like when Rama and Lakshmana come back, they see that Sita is not there in the cottage in Panchavati. So that point in time, Rama and Lakshmana keep walking to find where is Sita. In the journey, in the process of finding out Sita, they happen to meet this historic leader of apes called Sri Hanuman. Hanuman is a great devotee of Rama, and Hanuman happens to be a great follower of this adherent friend of Sugriva. Vali, Sugriva. There are two brothers who happen to be a brother and two brothers of this kingdom called Kishkinda. Vali throws away Sugriva from Kishkinda. Vali takes in custody of wife of Sugriva. All this story happens over there. Now, the moment Rama and Lakshmana meets Hanuman, Hanuman gets to know their purpose, their objective, and what they wanted to do. Now, all this particular part, they meet Sugriva and they explain, look, I'll help you, you help me. I'll try to get your kingdom back. Rama gives a promise to Sugriva, saying that, look, I'll fight with Vali, I'll take care of him. You try to help me to find Sita. Now, in the process of this, all of you know that Sugriva sends his team to east, west, north, south. And this south, it will be led by this person called Angad. In the process of finding, they happens to meet one this particular vulture named Sampati. Sampati happens to be a vulture, which is who happens to be elder brother of Jatayu. Sampati says that, look, in this particular direction, there's a place called Lanka. There Sita is there. Now Rama says, look, you get me reach over there. For this, what Vanara have done, they have done the construction of this bridge called Rama Setu. Now, this is a part of our epic from Ayodhya Kanda till Kishkinda Kanda, before we get into Sundara Kanda. Now, in this particular entire journey, if you look from advanced ruling point of view, what was the requirement of Rama? Rama was in search of Sita. So when this particular requirement was explained, was this a question which can be asked? Now Rama is briefing a question. Rama is framing a question. What is his purpose? Was he looking for killing Ravana? Was he trying to get the kingdom back of Sugriva? Was he in the process of making a Maitri, that is a friendship with Hanuman, Lord Hanuman and Sugriva? And what was the help sought by Rama? Was it a construction of a bridge? Was it finding Sita Devi? What was the exact thing? And if this particular activity happens to be happened as on today, from a mythological day, if I travel back to current scenario, if any of this search is done as on today, the activity done by Sugriva with the help of his Vanara, will that tantamount to supply of goods, supply of services, construction of a bridge? It's good that our tax laws were not existent in those days. Otherwise, they would say there was a shokas notice to be sent to Sugriva saying that, look, you have done a construction of a bridge. First and foremost, you have not taken the permission of National Highway Authority of India. Having done the construction, you have received a consideration by way of a kingdom. Now, there is a consideration in kind. Do the quantification, apply the provisions of section 15, do the value. Once you assess the value, you pay the respective GST. So what if I don't know the value? Come and make an application. Section 61. Come for a provisional assessment. Get the value ascertained by the proper officer. Now, having said all these things, Hanuman uses his power to visit Sri Lanka. That is to find Sita Devi. When Hanuman is using his powers, will that tantamount to a supply? Was there a supply at all? And Sugriva, when he has done this construction, assuming for a moment there is a supply, he has to ask a question. Should I need to get registered under GST law? Should I need to pay GST? If I have to pay GST, will I get a benefit of input tax credit? Now, these are all the questions which one can frame connected with my topic called advanced ruling. Just a backdrop where you can connect your questions framed under section 96. So just keep in back of your memory. When I travel to my slide number 96, you get a clarity. How do I apply this particular mythological principles? Now, why I made an attempt to teach you in this angle? I was also a student when I was preparing for my examinations. So when we have to remember certain topics, the best way of remembering is you connect these topics. Like, see, when you read a theoretical paper, it is just a theory. It never comes into your mind. You convert this theory into a story where you narrate these happenings and apply to the respective section 107, 108, 109. You try to find answers for those particular theory. And these theory questions will never forgotten when you go for presenting your examination. So with that backdrop, I made an attempt to connect you with my advanced ruling. In the process of this advanced ruling, what I have done, students, I have picked up some advanced ruling where questions were framed, questions were asked by certain people. I make you to realize where all we can apply these particular aspects of advanced ruling. Most of you, down the line, once you qualify your examination, you may join big organization. You may get into industry. You need to know the backdrop of advanced ruling, where I can use this as a tool to protect the interest of the organization, right? So with this backdrop, let me explain these examples to have a better connectivity. This particular case, there is an entity called Tirupur City Municipal Corporation. Tirupur City Municipal Corporation. Now, when I say Tirupur City Municipal Corporation, this is nothing but a government undertaking which is doing certain functions. Now, don't be under impression that just because an entity is a government undertaking, no applicability of GST. Don't be in that impression. Until and unless there is an exemption notification, until and unless there is an absolute exemption, you have to register and pay GST. GST does not spare anyone. The GST does not spare anyone. Until and unless there is an explicit exemption notification, every person who does a business activity are bound by this particular law. For this, the root is section 7. Section 7, which talks about your supply. Now, there is a question asked by this particular entity. What they say, examine the applicability of a exemption notification on activities carried on. So this particular entity has been carrying on few activities. For these activities, they wanted to examine the exemption notification to say whether they are exempted from GST or should they need to register and pay GST. What are the activities? First, fees from park. Now, I don't know how many of you have a habit of going to park early morning, not to see your friend, not to see your girlfriend or boyfriend. By the way, park is not meant only for that. It is meant for physical activities and your yoga or the health-related aspects. So, as a part of your town planning, every town, every city should have a park. Why? Maintenance of greenery. Second, for the civilians to have their health, they need to provide basic facilities in a park. Every park should have this what you call lawn maintenance, your physical gym related equipments, some sort of facilities are required. So they have something called fees from park. So there is a fees. I go to a park, I come. I never pay anything called fees. Now, what if there's a park where there's an amusement park, where there's a waterfall, or where there is a children's play area? Now, there are a few parks which is free of cost. There are a few parks where there is a maintenance cost. Example, there is a drinking water facility. There is a few parks have a washroom facility. Now, certain aspects go with a basic nominal fee. Like example, in Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Telangana, Karnataka, every government park has got a drinking water supply. You go to that particular park where you pay nominal 5 rupees, you get a 25 liters drinking water. Just pay, put the coin, water comes out of the vending machine. So there is a fees which is received from these parks. Market fees. Second, market fees. Daily, weekly, monthly. What they do, they have this mandi. Now, it is not possible that all these vegetable sellers or all these small-time pulses sellers, they have a private places where they can go and sell. Rather, government itself has got a place called mandi, where they allocate shops, shop 1, 2, 3, 4. They assign the numbers and they say you pay rent daily, weekly, or monthly. Similarly, fee for bay in a bus stand. Now, as a part of my town planning, I do a road. A portion of the road I assign as a bus stop. When I give it to government buses for playing their buses, I get some money for assigning some portion as a bus stand. Renting of immovable property to local authority, cooperative society, nationalized bank. So they have some remote road, like the government offices. They have big buildings. They give it on rent. I have, say, like electricity bill to be paid, water bill to be paid, telephone bill. Some government collection agencies will be there, which is given to local authority. I have a cooperative society, say Milk Federation, Vegetable Cooperative Society, or banks per se, nationalized banks. So there is a business which happens in a premises. So for all these activities, please examine my business. Please examine this particular notification and tell me what I have to do. So in this particular exemption notification, there's a notification called 12 of 2017. 12 of 2017, where the authority concerned have read the application and they say, look, don't pay tax on this, don't pay tax on this, also don't pay tax on this. Why? These are essential services. Now, this local authority don't collect any tax, cooperative society don't collect any tax, nationalized bank, there is no exemption. Register yourself, charge GST, and you pay the tax. Now, this renting activity was brought under reverse charge mechanism. If so, then let that buyer pay the taxes. This is the answer given in my advanced ruling. Next example, Ballari Nirmit Kendra. Ballari Nirmit Kendra is not a local authority. It is an agency. It is an agency which has sought for an application. What they say? Is there an applicability of GST on grant? What is a grant? It is a government grant. Supply of service by a government controlled association. This Nirmit Kendra is an association controlled by government but not owned. Please understand. There's an ownership, there's a control. Ownership comes by way of equity. Control comes by way of activity. So there is an entity called Ballari Nirmit Kendra, which is an entity controlled by a government. And there is no notification to notify this particular association. This entity to render services to state government, local authority, any person specified by the state government, local authority against a consideration received from state government or local authority. So what they do, this particular Nirmit Kendra, they do a works contract service. So what is that works contract service? There's a school, there's a hospital, there is a particular place or there is a public worship. Now, if someone wants to visit a temple, now there is a temple. In the temple, you need to have some place for organizing a public gathering. Say you have to have namakarna, you want to have some marriage thing, or some ceremony should be conducted, or you have a school where there is no playground. You need to develop a playground. There is a school, a library to be constructed, a hospital where there is a particular ward to be constructed. All these civil works are assigned to this Nirmit Kendra from the government grants assigned to it. The government grants, there is something called MP LADS. Have you heard of this thing called MP LADS? Member of Parliament gets a grant by way of a MP LAD. The government has part of their funding, they allocate some funds to the MP. Why? To develop a particular area in their zone, they get money from ministry, they need to spend for development. So this money which is received from government grants, if it is spent for this uplift and development, should I need to charge GST? This was the question which was asked in this particular advance ruling. So what happened to this advance ruling? The government said, look, any money received from government grant exempted. Any money received from any private authorities where there is no specific direction, when there is no specific notification under 12 of 2017, you have to pay GST. So answer was partially yes, partially no. Now, this is a fantastic question. Look at the way the business happens. Now, I want all of you to read subject not only from examination point of view. This particular case, Parshwan Coconuts is a seller who has gone for an advance ruling. What he has said, sir, please let me know what is the classification. What is the classification of goods? What is asking? Please tell me first what is the classification. Having known classification, please tell me what is the rate of tax applicable for that. Dry coconut, edible, copra, dry coconut for milling. I have a dry coconut which is meant for oil, and dry coconut for milling, which is a powder. I can make a powder of dry coconut. I can make a oil out of my this particular dry coconut. So this application has been already sought for provisional assessment. And having filed an application for provisional assessment, he again come for advance ruling. So authority say, look, since your application is pending under provisional assessment, I cannot entertain you. Please go back for your provisional assessment. So here, as a merchant, I take the dry coconut. This dry coconut, I have a choice. I can make a edible oil out of it, or I can make a this dry coconut which is meant for milling purpose. I make a powder out of that. So based on the activity, I have to determine what is the rate of tax I have to pay. So here, since the application was already pending before one more officer, they said, don't come here, go and get your provisional assessment done. If required, come back to us. Next. This is an extended version, agricultural activity. How a benefit of exemption can be looked upon, this advanced ruling will teach us. For each advanced ruling, I have given a citation. This citation, TMI, is nothing but a vendor. Tax Management India is a software in which this is a citation number. There are various software, like you have Tax India Online, Tax Management, or direct citation of a advanced ruling authority. So I've used the software, so that citation I have mentioned. Don't worry much on this citation. Just so you can see this particular case on a GST portal. You'll get to know this advanced ruling. So in this case, this supplier has asked a question. My dear officer, please let me know whether activity done by me is an agriculture service, yes or no. What he has done, he is doing a service of cold storage of tamarind. That is inner pulp without shell and seeds. Look at the way the business happens. A tamarind which is plucked from a tree. Look at the way the activities are done, students. A tamarind tree has got this tamarind fruit. This tamarind fruit has got a shell outside. When you take the shell, you get a tamarind with seed. I take the seed out of the that particular tamarind. I get an inner pulp. So what I'm doing, I can dry this, take out the outer shell. I can dry this, give with the seed. I can dry, take the shelf. I can also take the seed out of this. Now here, what is that they are doing? They are storing a tamarind inner pulp. The main essence of tamarind, that alone was stored in a cold storage. So what the authority said, look, you're doing various activities. What is that? First, you're doing a drying activity. Whatever tamarind was plucked out of the tree, you put it on a dry sun. Next, what you do, you de-shell. That means you break that, take the external shell. Then third activity, de-seeding. What you're doing, in between the tamarind, the seeds are there. You're taking the seeds. Then the final product is what getting stored in the process. Entire above process is not done at as a cottage industry, and it is not done at the farmland. They say it is not part of an agricultural activity. What is agricultural activity? Growing the trees, getting the, plucking the fruits or plucking the produce of the trees. That is called agricultural activity. Additional to that, you're doing something as a cottage industry, which is not an agricultural produce. Then they say, no, it is not agricultural produce. You don't get an exemption under GST. Now, this is another extreme of how we look at the business. So when you read the law, you just read from one angle. When you get into the business, how the business happens, you get to know the difficulties, what is there for one to understand how the law functions. Now, in this case of Vadilal Industries, the question was asked, sir, I am doing the particular agricultural service. Please tell me what is the classification. There is a flavored milk which is sold under a trade name of Power Sip. If you recollect, there is an advertisement which is coming where Sono Sood comes in this advertisement and says it's a flavored milk, which is called Power Sip. You take this flavored milk so that you get your energy, instant energy. This particular officer asked, so can you classify this under 0402? 0402, basic classification of milk. Basic classification of milk. So this particular applicant says, my dear officer, I am selling something called flavored milk. Can I call that as a milk? So what he has given, he said, I do some activity where my product consists of a standard milk. Whatever I'm selling as a flavored milk, it consists 92% of basic milk. So whatever milk comes to me, 92%. I add 8% of sugar. Why? To give a taste, I add this percentage. I mix a color. Why? To give little blue, green color milk, which looks like a pista milk, or yellow, looks like a badam mix. And a flavor in kesar and badam to this proportionate. Rose milk to this proportionate. Ilachi to this proportionate. Based on the flavor, I add various ingredients. Major 92% is milk. So, can I call this as a basic milk which is exempted under GST? Officer saying, no. It is not a basic milk. It is a non-alcoholic beverage. The officer said, whatever you are selling as a power sip is not a milk. It is not an ordinary milk. The officer said it is a non-alcoholic beverage. First and foremost, so where is the alcohol? How can you call it as a beverage? But the officer says, no, it is not a flavor milk. It is a non-alcoholic beverage, but not includes a fruit or vegetable of this particular heading. So this is not classifiable under this. You need to pay GST at the rate of 18%. This is a classification they have given in this particular advanced ruling. So the purpose of these advanced ruling students, for you to understand the nature of business. Based on the nature of business, you need to understand what activity I do, where I have to take shelter for exemption. Should I need to register? Should I need to pay tax? All these questions can be framed under my advanced ruling. Before I proceed with my topic, let me see if there are any questions so far. Okay. Sumit says, good way to narrate the story. There's one question from Namita. Sir, in an appeal, how an appellate authority can issue a show cause notice? Okay, Namita, in an appeal, before the matter is decided, I'll put it this way, Namita. Akshay is a adjudicating authority. Namita is a assessee. Namita is a assessee. Say, Sumit happens to be a appellate authority. Now, before Sumit decides the matter, he'll ask Akshay, Akshay, did you give show cause notice? Sumit checks further, was this show cause notice adjudicated before hearing this matter, maybe before taking it for appeal? So, Namita, you as an assessee, when you go to the appellate authority checks two aspects, Namita. Was there a show cause notice issued? Yes or no? On the basis of show cause notice, was there a proper adjudication? When these two conditions are satisfied, then the appellate authority, Sumit, will decide the matter whether it can be decided or not. If there was no show cause notice, it will be simply set back. It will be written back. That is how you need to apply these provisions of 73, 74, Namita. There's one more question from Namita. Sir, in the example of milk, can it be classified as a composite supply? So milk is a main supply. See, in case of services, you can do that activity. Like Namita is asking this question, you are having milk, you are having sugar, you are having this flavored ilachi. Can I call that as a composite supply? When you think of composite supply, in case of goods, it is little tough to apply this funda. In case of services, it is pretty easy to apply composite supply. So in case of goods, Namita, what is the identity which is getting established? When I go to a shop, say take example, there is a milk parlor which is run by the cooperative society. Whenever you go to this milk parlor, choice number one, I buy milk which is meant for boiling and consuming as a milk on a daily basis. Milk consumed on a regular basis. I go to a milk parlor to buy energy drink or to buy a flavored milk. Why do I buy a flavored milk? It has got additional ingredients of an ordinary milk. Ordinary milk will sustain only for a day or at best 2 days. In case of an energy drink, that is your flavored milk, it gets sustained for 7 to 10 days, right? There's a difference because they do pasteurization. They add flavors. So there is a difference how the product is getting identified. In this example of milk, Namita, officers say energy drink is not an ordinary milk. So definitely the benefit of ordinary milk cannot be given. So what I have to do? Then he has classified as a non-alcoholic drink to charge 18% GST. Surya is asking this question. If assessor is not satisfied with advanced ruling, he can go for appeal. Yes, there is an appeal, Surya. We will discuss on this appeal related matters short while. So there is an appeal mechanism under GST. It is advanced ruling also. Advanced ruling, a definition. What is the purpose of advanced ruling? Why I go for advanced ruling? Advanced ruling means decision provided. I get a decision. Sir, I have done my PUC. I have done my +2. I don't know what to do. Should I take science as an elective? Should I take commerce as an elective? I'm at a crossroad. So I have to have a decision. Similar to our profession, even in our business. In our business, say, I have been doing this activity, say a small job worker. A person who is into activity of cutting, bending, and putting punching holes. Now, this particular person buys steel himself. He does the activity of cutting, he does the activity of welding, and he sells something called ATM box. Can he himself call as a job worker to charge GST at the rate of 18%? Or should he call himself as a manufacturer where he has to charge 28% because it is classified as an electronic item? What should be the rate of tax? I need to have a decision. But please keep in mind, students, business is dynamic in nature. The way I do my activities today may change tomorrow, may change day after tomorrow. As and when the technology progress, as and when the way things change, I change my business activity. So advanced ruling is a mechanism where a decision is provided by whom? By authority. by authority or appellate authority. Suraya asked this question just a while ago. Sir, is there a appeal? No, I'm not happy with this authority. Then don't worry. You go for appeal. This appellate authority has a mechanism to revisit the decision. Example, take example of this milk itself. Namita was not happy with this authority. Namita went with the hope saying that, sir, I'm selling an energy sale. Please consider that as milk. Don't classify as a your non-alcoholic beverage. She has gone with a full confidence. Unfortunately, her confidence was poured down by this authority. Now she can go for an appeal to whom? Appellate authority. So a decision given by a authority or a decision given by a appellate authority to whom? To a applicant. A person who filed an application, he gets a decision. Now question comes here. Sir, Akshay has gone to Ministry of Defense and he's asked a question. Sir, I am doing my CA final. Am I entitled to get into defense? They say, yes, why not? You're having 6 feet tall, you have fit health, and no, you can definitely get into defense. Now, a decision given to Akshay. Looking at Akshay, Geeta cannot go back and say, sir, you asked Akshay to come and join defense, can I also join? The application filed by Akshay is applicable for Akshay, not to Geeta, not to Namita, not to Naveen. So this is what the advanced ruling says. A decision provided by the authority or appellate authority. So I have authority, I have appellate authority. A decision given to whom? To an applicant on matters or questions specified under 97 or 100. Now, these two sections, section 97, section 100, precisely, they are nothing but a direction points, like a flag post. They indicate what questions I can formulate. Section 97, section 100. These two sections tell me, no, these two sections tell the applicant what question I can ask. Just because I can ask a question, I cannot go to the appellate, advanced ruling authority and ask, my dear authority, this year you have fixed a rate of 18% on sale of electronic gadgets. What is your decision? What is your view for the next year? Are you going to increase to 28%? Or are you going to reduce it to 12%? Based on your decision, I'll see whether I'll import from China, I'll import from Japan, I'll import from Indonesia. I cannot ask those kind of questions. I have to ask only those questions which are being defined in these two sections. In relation to supply of goods and services of both being undertaken or proposed to be undertaken. Now look at these two phrases. Being undertaken. Now Namita got a contract for 2 crores. There is a Rajasthan municipal authority. Rajasthan municipal authority gave a contract to Namita for the purpose of development of a park. Now, question comes to Namita. 2 crores is a very good value. Once I do the development of park, I can raise a bill, I can get the money. Namita was very happy, excited. Naveen came to spoil her mood. Naveen says, Namita, you got a contract for 2 crore. Who will pay 36 lakhs GST? Completely poured down. Namita was never clear that there was applicability of GST. Whether or not she should pay. Now, wherever there is a work which is in progress, Namita already got a contract from Rajasthan Municipal Authority where work is being undertaken, work is happening or proposed to be undertaken. Namita has not received the contract. She is yet to get the contract. Either of these two cases, I can go for advanced ruling. This is the biggest advantage of my advanced ruling. I can take an advanced ruling where the activity is being undertaken or where there are activities proposed to be undertaken. These two are what we have to understand. Moving further, appellate authority means the authority for advanced ruling, appellate authority for advanced ruling in section 99. So there is an officer who has been appointed as an advanced ruling authority. That fellow will be called as my appellate authority. Let me just come to the page number of your institute material. Yes. Basic definitions in page number 23.3. Moving further. Applicant. Applicant means a person. Applicant means a person registered or desirous of obtaining registration. Namita got a contract from Rajasthan Municipal Authority. If she is registered, she can go and file an application. So what if I'm not registered? You're having a desire to obtain registration. Even then you will be called as an applicant. So how do I make an application? I don't have a GST number. Don't worry. Use your PAN. Sir, I don't have a PAN. Am I NRI? Don't worry. You use the unique identity number. You declare that yourself as an NRI. They'll not ask for PAN or GST number. Still, you can file an application. Application means application made under Section 97. And ruling, which is given under 96. So authority appointed under 96. Now, these are basic questions. Authority for advance ruling, officer appointed under the state law, officer appointed under union territory or central. Any of these three jurisdictions, I call them as a authority. Now, application for advance ruling. When I have to file my application under Section 97, the application can be filed by a person using this form called ARA01. A person who wants a ruling, he can file a form called ARA01 and a nominal fee of 5,000 CGST, 5,000 SGST, he has to deposit. And such fees may be prescribed stating the question. So, very simple. I just fill a form, I pay a nominal fee of 5,000 and state my question. So, can I ask one question? You can ask one question, you can ask two questions, you can ask 5 questions. Under one application, yes. Once you are filing an application, you can ask whatever questions which are permitted under the law can be questioned under Section 97. Now, so my Section 97, page number 23.3. Students, look at your page number 23.3. What questions can be asked under advanced ruling? Any question which you expect from your examination, this is one slide, page number 23.3. This is the only page where you can expect a question. Entire questions framed in your advanced ruling are based on this particular Section 97. But for this, I don't see a merit of any other topic being tested in your examination. For convenience, what I have done, I have clubbed these points in a bullet points, in buckets for ease of understanding. So first question, like if you look at your page number 23.3, questions for which advanced ruling can be sought. The definition of advanced ruling given under this act is a broad one. Under GST, advanced ruling can be obtained on a proposed transaction. Use your pencil, underline proposed transaction. Students who don't have institute material, please make a note, proposed transaction. As well as a transaction already undertaken, underline already undertaken. Write down in your institute material, already undertaken. By the appellant, advanced ruling can be sought for the following questions. Point number 1, activity tantamount to a supply. I have covered this. There's a clause G, page number 23.4, clause G. What does it say? Whether any particular thing done by the applicant with respect to any goods or services or both amounts to or results in a supply of goods or services or both within the meaning of that term. Now look at your Ramayana. Sugriva has done the construction of Rama Setu. Sugriva has done the construction of Rama Setu. Look at your clause G. Whether any particular thing done by the applicant. Sugriva, being an applicant, has done a particular thing. What was that? With respect to any goods or services. He has constructed a dam, considered to be a service. Amounts, whether that particular activity of construction amounts to or results in a supply of goods or services or both within the meaning of that term. So first question, my dear officer, look, I'm going to do this activity. Does it tantamount to supply? Let's take another example. Say Naveen is a professional. I'll not say, I use the term professional. Naveen is recruited for various people for various activities to trouble the other people. Just for academic interest, Naveen, don't take otherwise. Now, I want to go for an interview. I have done dress well and I just came out of the home. My neighbor, who's not happy with me, they gave a amount of 5,000 to Naveen. What they say? Look, whenever Praveen comes out of his home, you just sneeze twice. Hachi, hachi. That's all. For doing that, Naveen gets 5,000. Now Naveen is worried. Daily, I'm sneezing for 10 times. 5,000 into 10, 50,000. Look at the ransom. Per day, 50,000 just for sneezing. Now, does this activity of sneezing tantamount to supply of goods, tantamount to supply of services? Now, I have a question. I can frame a question where an activity which is undertaken tantamount to supply. That's the first question I can frame. Second, classification. Come back to your clause number A. Classification of goods and services are both. So, having known that I did a supply, please tell me whether what is the classification? Is it a supply of goods? Is it a supply of services? When Naveen sneezes, was it a supply of goods, supply of services? When Sugriva did this activity of Ramasetu, was he didn't transfer his ownership? He didn't transfer his title in goods. He was worried. Was this an activity of supply? Having known that, assuming government says yes, it is a supply. Now he asks the second question. My lord, tell me, was it a supply of goods? Was it a supply of services? I can ask a question on classification. Point number 3. Determination of time and value of supply. Clause C. So I know that I did a Ramasetu construction. They say yes, it is a supply. So I have gone for classification. They say, look, Sugriva, you did a Ramasetu construction. I don't know whether you got a permission from National Highway authorities or not, but still it happens to be a construction. It is a service. And the next question comes, my dear officer, I'm very worried. How do I determine what is the time of supply? What is the value of supply? Now Sugriva is asking further. First and foremost, you say it is a supply. You say it is a consideration in kind. Now let me know what is the value of supply. Having known what is the value, also you guide me what is the time of supply. So I can frame a question in relation to a matter, whether it tantamount to supply. If it tantamount to supply, what is the classification? If they identify what is the classification, I come to the next step. Please guide me what is the value. Also, please guide me what is the determination of time of supply. Point number 4. Point number 4. Liability to pay tax. Look at your clause E. What is the clause E? Determination of a liability to pay tax on any goods or services or both. Liability to pay tax on goods and services. Now, Sugriva is going to ask, are you going to put the liability on me or are you going to put the liability on Rama, Lord Sri Rama? Please tell me who has to pay, who is liable to pay tax. I, as a service provider, should I pay tax, or Lord Sri Rama as a recipient, should he pay tax? Next, point number 4. Applicability of a notification. Clause B. Look at your clause B. Applicability of a notification issued. Now, having said that, I did a construction of Ramasetu. You said that it is a supply. You have classified it as a service. You also said that love and affection. Tons of love and affection is a consideration in kind. You have determined the value. And also you have determined the time of supply. The moment Lord Sri Ram steps his feet on that particular Ramasetu, that is your time of supply. Inauguration, ribbon cutting. When Lord Sri Rama got into the bridge, it is tantamount to time of supply. So having said all this, you tell me, should I pay the tax or should the other party pay tax? Also, look, there is an exemption notification. You gave 12 of 2017. You let me know whether I can apply that notification to my business activity. This is your clause E read with your clause B. Finally, applicant is liable to register. Sir, you have said everything. I'm happy with your GST law. Who said? Sugriva. Now, finally, you read all these things. You read that Valmiki Ramayana and tell me who is liable to register. Should Valmiki as a writer register? Should Lord Vigneshwara, who written this story, need to register? Should Sugriva need to register? Should Sri Rama need to register in the GST? Or as an audience, I am listening to this story, should I need to register in the GST? Please guide me who has to register. Finally, you have pinpointed and you made me a scapegoat. Now let me know. Having a registration, you said I have to, whatever construction I have done without the knowledge of GST law, you have tantamount, you said that it is a supply. You have classified that as a service. You have quantified what is the value. I don't have knowledge, but you have quantified. And also you have fixed what is the time of supply. And you said that I as a service provider should pay the tax. And when I asked, was there any exemption notification 12 of 2017? You said no. And you forced me to get registered. I did all these things. Now please tell me, can I take the input tax credit on my purchases? What is that? I had the squirrel papa who helped me to lay this bridge construction. There's a love and affection from the squirrel. Can I take the ITC? Was it in relation to business? Can I claim the input tax credit? Now, this particular point, clause D, look at your institute material. Admissibility of input tax credit of tax paid or deemed to have been paid. Look at this language. I draw your attention only to this point, Admissibility of ITC. So here, page number 23.3, this particular clause D for Delhi. Admissibility of input tax credit of tax paid or deemed to have been paid. So only when it came to ITC, they said tax paid or deeming to pay. Only in this case, I can frame a question of ITC. So what if I am not registered? I'm in the process of registration. Can I ask a question on ITC? They'll say, no. Only in relation to input tax. Look at the clause D. Admissibility of input tax credit of tax paid or deemed to have been paid. Examination, this is one point where a 2 marks adjustment will be asked. Right? Now I'll come to an Excel file to make you clear with this particular ITC. Let me come to my Excel file. Hope you are able to see my Excel file, students. What they say, in case of ITC alone, clause D, admissibility of input tax admissibility of ITC paid or deemed to have been paid. Now, this one point alone they will test in your examination. Example, scenario 1. Mr. X, a registered person, has received 10 tons of steel for business purpose. 2 tons are used for factory shed construction. Now, what this particular X does, he has been in the process of buying and selling steel. In the process of his business, whatever steel he has purchased, 2 tons he has used for his own factory shed construction. So he wanted to know whether ITC is available or not. So here you will say, only if Mr. X is a registered person who has paid GST on steel purchased, can ask a question under section 97. So if this person was not registered or this person has not paid GST, if he has not paid GST, he cannot frame a question. So here there is a valid application. X is a registered, he purchased steel, and this particular steel, he has used it for his factory shed construction. In that case, yes, he can claim, he can ask a question. I'll go for scenario 2. Scenario 2. In my scenario 2, say Mrs. ABC and Co, a registered person in Kerala, have asked a question on eligibility of ITC on a motor vehicle if purchased and given to a trust as donation. Can ITC be availed by Mrs. ABC and Co? So, this particular company, ABC and Co, what they have done, they have gone to an officer and say, my dear officer, there is a trust for which they wanted a motor vehicle. They wanted some ambulance. They wanted some, Tata Ace or 407 for the purpose of food carrying. So when I want to give this motor vehicle as a donation to this trust, please let me know whether ITC is available, yes or no. In this case, no purchase took place. So here, when you look at the clause D, the ITC should have been paid or deemed to have been paid. Now here, the purchase itself didn't took place. On the basis of the authority, if they say yes, I'll buy. If they say no, I'll not buy. Then I cannot frame a question under 97. This is what we need to understand. Students, I repeat, examination, this is the only point which will be tested by and large again and again. Now, let me see if there are any questions so far. Namita is asking this question. Sir, all activity can come into supply, as supply of services includes everything other than goods. Sir, all activity can come into supply as the supply of services includes everything other than goods. Services is a macro subset, goods is a micro subset. Now, other than the definition of goods, other than the definition of services, we have to look into Amita. Identification, yes, this sounds good, but at times, nature of business, nature of the product, how do we identify? Like to answer your question, there was a definition of manufacturer under excise law. A beautiful explanation. This definition of manufacturer, they say how a product is identified in the business as a common parlance, as a trade practice. We will give the weightage to that. Next example, say you're interested to sell this pen, Namita. Now, benefit of other students, I'll clarify this point. What Namita is saying, sir, when someone is asking for a question, now service covers everything other than goods. So when you take in a goods, by default, it could be a service. Now, it is not that easy, Namita. Say, I want to sell a pen. Can I call this as a goods or services? Now, based on the business, like, sir, I have attached a torchlight. I have attached a recording machine. I have attached something called a AMC. Like here, when I use the pen, there is a service. What is a service? 5 years or 10 years down the line, your recording or this particular activity, I take care. It is under warranty. So am I interested in service? Am I interested in the product? Now, depends on what is that I'm looking at is what important for us. Another example. Say, I go to a doctor. Doctor looks at my condition and he gives a prescription. Along with the prescription, he gives some tablets. Can I call that as a sale of goods? Forget the exemption for a moment. When I go to a doctor, is it a sale of goods or supply of service? The paper, the small prescription, which the doctor gives, may be worth 25 paisa, maybe worth 1 rupee. I'm not going for this 1 rupee paper. The prescription what he has given may be worth 10 rupees. I'm not going for that. He's given a tablets which is worth 10 rupees. I'm not going for that. I'm going for the service given by a doctor. So, from the excise point of view, how a transaction is visualized by a common businessman. That is how the classification comes into picture, Namita. Namita comes with a devil's advocate mind. What she says, sir, in second scenario, if you don't disclose that purchase happened or not, in second scenario, I'll not disclose. I'll just go to the authority and say, sir, I purchased a truck worth 10 lakhs. I paid GST of 2.8 lakhs. Can I claim the input tax credit? I'll not disclose whether I purchased or not. Can I do so? The answer is documentation. The moment you ask for ITC, they know the law. They know how we think. The same way department also thinks. They'll say, okay, Namita, you get your bill. I'll look into your bill and I'll decide whether ITC is eligible or not. Now, that's how the law works. Let's come back to our presentation. Now, from examination point of view, students, I recommend remember these 6 buckets. Like activity done by Sugriva. If it is a supply, is it a supply of goods classification? Then how do I determine the value along with the time of supply? And who has to register? Should I register the other party? And having registered, what is the notification? If liability is there, was there any notification? I can take a shelter. Now, having examined all this, should I need to register? So, having registered, is there a benefit of ITC? So, these 6 points is what you have to look from advanced ruling section 97 point of view. Now, from here, it's all mechanical. It is not much big, complicated subject for you to understand. I'll take you through in a simple language to make you understand. Procedure. Once the application is filed online, this application goes to the advanced ruling authority. So what they will do, they will forward this to the concerned officer. They send this application to the concerned officer. Why? Officer, please look, there is an application which has come. Please let me know whether this gentleman has come to your office. Why? He has come to you for provisional assessment. He has come to me for advanced ruling. Now, like example, say I am doing a business activity of this cold storage of your tamarind. Now, I have gone to the provisional assessing authority to determine, sir, I store this tamarind. I don't know what is the time of supply. I don't know what is the value of supply. Reason, I get a tamarind without peeling. It comes with the shell. I do a drying activity. I remove the shell. I sell the shell. I store the shell for myself. I remove the seed. I make the powder out of the seed, or I retain the seed. Then the whatever the pulp is there, that pulp I put into my refrigerator. Now you tell me, how do I classify this? Is it a service? Is it a goods? So when all these questions are there, I may go to the provisional assessment authority. So for all the means, the application, the moment it is filed, first they will give to the concerned officer. Look, this gentleman has come for information. Do you have any records of this gentleman to examine? They will call this records from a concerned officer. Similarly, the applicant, whoever has filed an application, like Namita asked a doubt, sir, I'll go to the officer and say, sir, I purchased a truck. Please tell me whether I have to claim ITC or not. Now, they want to say, Namita, I received only application. Where is your purchase bill? Namita, you have sent me an application. You have explained that you have got a contract from this, Rajasthan Municipal Authority. Now, Naveen has explained that there is a applicability of GST. You never gave a contract copy. So they will ask the documents to be produced before the officer consent. Now, if the matter is already pending, they'll say, look, you have filed an application before provisional authority, or you have already filed an advanced ruling before state authority. I'll not decide matter. Let that get finally. Then we will decide whether to accept your application or reject your application. And as per the principles of natural justice, If they accept or reject, they will give a opportunity of being heard. Right now, we are at 8 p.m. Let's have a break for 5 minutes and then we'll resume back our discussion. Let me see if there are any questions so far on whatever we have discussed. In scenario 2, what if A, B, C? If we don't disclose we will purchase or not, we cannot ask a question for ITC, Namita. If we don't show the purchase bill, we cannot ask the question itself. Naveen is asking this question in scenario 2, what if ABC? Question is not clear, Naveen. I need little more elaboration so that I can clarify it back now. Now, let's move on to the procedure. Like I have filed my application. My application either will be accepted or rejected. So why do they accept? Sorry, why do they reject? They may reject if the questions are not pertain to these 6 aspects. Page number 23.3, what we have read till now. Under section 97, there are 6 aspects I can ask a question. The question which I've asked is not in these 6 aspects. Something else. Then there is a Praveen, you have come to us, which is not in detail file. Take an example. Let me come to my Excel file. I hope you are able to see my Excel file, students. Yeah. Now, say I have asked a question this way, like question number 1. Supply of goods to a ship sail from I'll say Japan to Vizag, Visakhapatnam. Sale of space rupees 1.8 lakh. Question number 1. Is it a supply? What is the rate of tax? Then should I charge? What is the nature of supply? Intrastate or interstate? Now, here, if you look at these 3 questions, is it a supply? Clause G says yes. I can ask whether it is a supply, yes or no. What is the rate of tax? Now here, determination of the liability to pay tax on the goods. So I may say, sir, you tell me what is the liability to pay? Should I pay 8%? Should I pay 12%? Should I pay 18%? So they'll tell me what is the classification and applicable rate of tax. So this answer is yes. Praveen, you can ask this question. Praveen, you can ask this question. I also asked, so what is the nature of supply? Intrastate or interstate? Unfortunately, all these clauses A to G, they didn't say it about place of supply. So they'll say, Praveen, you have asked a wrong question. This I cannot entertain. So my application may be accepted, rejected. Oh. Let me just insert this. My application, they could either say yes or they could say no. Now, my rejection can have 2 elements to it. Complete rejection, partial rejection. Like example here. So in this case, what happened? My application was completely not rejected. It was partially rejected. Praveen, you asked 3 questions. I can answer only 2 questions. The 3rd question, it is not as per section 97. So when they accept, I need not they will take the matter and go further. When they reject, they give an opportunity of being heard. They'll explain, Praveen, you have come with an application. Unfortunately, I cannot entertain you. Why? See, Section 97 gave me authority only to discuss on these aspects. What you asked was beyond the scope of 97. So I have to completely reject or I have to partially reject. Either of these two things can happen. Coming back. Now, once they have collected my application, this will be examined and authorized representative will come and represent. I go and explain my case, or I'll ask, Naveen, you're a professional, why don't you come and explain this case to the officer? So I take an expert of professional, section 116, what we have discussed the other day, a qualified chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary, or employee, or a blood relative, or a retired officer, or a GSTP. Any of these people can go and represent the applicant. Now, what they do, like when the matter is given for examination, always there will be a state officer, there will be a central officer. Always in an advance ruling, there will be two officers. One is from the state, one is from the center. So this is how the composition is formed. So if the state officer is in one angle and the central officer is in another direction, state officer says, like assuming that there is a matter of eligibility of ITC. State officer says, yes, you are eligible for. Central officer says, no, you're not eligible for. So if there is a question which cannot be answered, then the matter will be referred to appellate authority. That matter, they'll say, look, I cannot do anything. You go to the appellate authority. So this particular advance ruling which was given, no time limit, they have said that authority should give their opinion, that is their ruling within a period of 90 days. Now, whatever ruling was given, it will be given to the applicant, a copy applicant, to the concerned officer, jurisdiction officer. Concerned officer, the state or other officer who is not other than a jurisdiction officer. Next. Now, appeal. Like, I think this is one question asked. Suraya asked this question. So here, I have not happy, I have been not happy with the authority, the ruling what was given. Then I can decide to go for appeal. So earlier I have paid 5,000, I have to pay 10,000 to go for an appeal. 10,000, 10,000, 20,000. Who can go for an appeal? Concerned officer or jurisdiction officer who are not happy with the appeal, the ruling, or the applicant. So this could be one party. This could be on the other hand, the other party. Now, whenever we talk about fees, it is applicable only to the registered person or the other person to register, not applicable to government officer, right? Now, any person who is agreed with this advance ruling, within a period of 30 days, they have to go for an appeal. Sir, I'm not happy. I've said that this activity, this is what I'm doing. I've read the GST law. I think that this restriction of input tax under 17 is not applicable. Sir, I do supply of this goods. I do this construction activity. I think this notification 12 of 2017 gives me an exemption. However, I have convinced that advanced ruling authority has not understood. Then, left with no choice, I'll go for appellate authority. I'll give a classic example what happened. There was one advance ruling last Corona, 2020-21. Government, there was a big jolt to the entire businessman. What happened? One company wrote application to advanced ruling authority. My dear officer, I have been paying salary to my directors. Let me know whether they are considered as an employee, and should I need to charge GST on reverse charge mechanism? Should I call that services received from the directors as a services received other than in the capacity of an employee? Is RCM applicable? Now, liability to pay tax, that was question. Was there a applicable? Was there a supply? If there is a supply, who is liable to pay tax? This was the question frame. Happily, advanced ruling authority said yes. Services rendered by the directors not to be considered as an employer-employee relation, and that is liable to GST, and the recipient has to pay tax on reverse charge mechanism. This was the advanced ruling given by Rajasthan authority. Entire India got shaken. Like this COVID, this felt Already we are burdened with advanced ruling, and this authority said that there is applicability. Now, left with no choice, they have gone for appeal. So Surya, that opportunity comes here. I'm not happy with the ruling given to me. I go for an appeal. Now, this particular appeal, what happens when I go for appeal? They, based on discussion, examination, all the process, either they confirm or they modify. They confirm what was given by the lower authority stands good. Modification, they give a slight correction to the interpretation of law. Now, this particular ruling, that is appellate authority, they will give a decision within a period of 90 days. And what if, sir, like your advanced ruling, even appellate authority, there was a difference of opinion. Then they say that no advanced ruling can be issued. Like example, development of plots. Sir, I have a land. I do a development activity. I can, like, you know what, there's a big land of 10 acres. I draw borders. I draw roads. I put a line for water storage. I do all these things and I develop as a develop plots. Should I charge GST? One officer says yes, one officer says no. No difference of opinion. No advance. I go for appeal. Even the same stand at higher level. VAT authority, who happens to be the state GST officer now, they say, no, it is a sale of immovable property, not applicable. Central GST was from a service tax. They had a similar understanding. Earlier we were collecting service tax. Why shouldn't we collect GST? So one officer says one, another officer says one. In those scenarios, no advance ruling is passed. Moving further. Now, whenever there is a modification, that modification, if it results in increase in the exposure of processing, again, opportunity of being heard will be given. So what if there was an error which is apparent on the record? Those errors, which can be brought to the notice of the officer by the applicant or by the department, that will be corrected within a period of 6 months. See, generally, where we come across this rectification, where we say there's an error on apparent on the record, all the facts which are put across, facts will come properly. When it comes to the fact decision, they copy some other decision over here. Like I give my own experience in case of advanced ruling. There was one application file where we said, so there is a factory. For this particular factory, we need to draw power from the government land line. In front of my factory, there was a transformer. From transformer, the power should be brought and the line should be connected into the factory. Now, why is it required? Unless there is a power, my factory cannot operate. So what I am saying, for drawing this power from the main, this particular transformer, I need to do cabling. I buy cable. I buy consumables. I buy internally within the factory. I need to have a small transformer. I need to have this anodes, connectors, joints, a lot of items. I need a civil work. What happens? The person, civil contractor, he digs the soil, he puts an electrical cable beneath the soil, which is called as a works contract. I also buy some cables. I also buy a transformer, which is called capital items. So all these items, there was money spent to the tune of 2 crores. So I have spent 2 crores. Please let me know whether I can claim the ITC. Officers say, look, this power drawn from the main line, which is from the government, which is in relation to business. Now, this particular business, they are into manufacturing of some nuts and bolts where they charge GST. Having discussed all those things, they came to the fag end of the conclusion. Having understood the nature of business activity, since it is a works contract not used in the furtherance of business, no ITC is eligible. Now, what happened here? Main body, they say, I use power for production. I use this power for my manufacturing activity. That is an essential activity. When I come to the end of the thing, they say, this particular works contract, not in the course of furtherance of business, not eligible for ITC. Now, I'll say, there is a mistake error apparent on the record, where they say on the top, it is in relation to furtherance. At the conclusion, it is not in relation to furtherance. Then I go back to the officer within a period of 6 months to get my ruling corrected. This is what happens in case of a rectification. Now, wherever there is a rectification being done, if the tax liability is increasing or the ITC is reducing, generally opportunity will be given to the appellant before making suitable modifications. Now, important, whenever an advance ruling is taken, like I gave an example, Akshay goes to the defense ministry to get a confirmation whether he can join defense. And parallelly, Geeta goes and asks, sir, can I also join defense? Similarly, any advance ruling given, this is binding, this is applicable only to the applicant and consent officer. Like example, Namita has gone for an advance ruling and said, sir, I'm purchasing a Tata Nano. This is used for this particular trust. Can I claim the ITC? Officer said, yes, you can claim. Based on this advance ruling given in the favor of Namita, Akshay purchases another Tata Nano and he claims the ITC. And when the department audit happens, Akshay shows the ruling of Namita. Then the department says, look, the ruling what was given is only applicable to Namita, not to Akshay, not to Geeta, not to Naveen. So this is what I have to understand with respect to advance ruling. Only to that person it is applicable. And when we talk about this, it is applicable until and unless there is a change in the law, fact, or circumstances. The day when you file your application, what was the position of the law? The day when you filed application, what was the fact? Based on that, ruling will apply. If I change my business over a period of time, then my advance ruling may get altered. So all the circumstances should remain intact to enjoy the input tax credit. Now, so what if I have gone for an advance ruling which was obtained by means of a fraud or suppression, by means of a misrepresentation? Like what Namita was asking. I don't have a bill. I want to claim, I want to know whether IDs is applicable or not. So I did a Photoshop. I took a bill. I did a small editing on this invoice, PDF editing. I took a print and I gave. So this is my vendor who charged GST. Now, if a bill was given without actual supply, which is by way of a fraud, suppression, misrepresentation, then they say that advance ruling is void ab initio. As if this ruling was not served, they will set aside this particular ruling. Now, what happens in court, similar provisions. They will call for examination, they will discuss, they will exchange the documents. They want to hear a person what exactly the business works on. Whatever provisions are there in CPC, same provisions are equally brought in over here. Now, with this, we come to the end of advance ruling. Now, let me go to the next topic, which was assigned to me today on this topic called payment of taxes, liability to pay tax. Just give me a minute. Let me share my presentation. Students, the second topic for our today's discussion is liability to pay tax in certain cases. Let me just see if there are any questions before I start with this topic. Namita is asking this question. So, who is the concerned AO? Who is the consent officer? Is it AO? Consent officer is the proper officer or jurisdiction officer, like parallel officer. State GST, parallel is central GST. That's the consent officer. So, what kind of records the assessee submitted to AAR by consent officer? See, when there is an application filed, the consent officer will give, was there any inquiry? Was there any advance ruling sought? Was there any provisional assessment? Now, was there any record where this particular person has come already for advance ruling? Now, all this information, basic check will be done from the consent officer. Naveen is asking this question. We will have 180 days time of payment. So I have to bill, but payment was not yet made. Now, can we ask a question? Oh, okay. I understood. So Naveen is asking this question. So as per section 16, whenever we purchase, within 180 days, I have to pay back to the officer. So what if I haven't paid to the officer? Now, as on the day when you file an application, you receive the bill. Taxes paid means deemed to be paid, like I admitted that I am going to pay. I have received the goods and services, I have a bill. That is good enough for me to go for an advance ruling. I need not establish that I have paid the amount to the supplier. No. Technical question, deemed to have been paid. Related party transaction, it is deemed to have been paid. Now, officer may question, like Naveen has a valid point. So when I go for advance ruling, I have to show that tax was paid. Should I need to actually make payment and then go for a bill, go for advance ruling? Answer, sounds good. Yes, you have to prove that you have paid as per section 16 and then you file a application for advance ruling. Now, what if, Naveen, you get an advance ruling and then you ask the supplier to take back the goods? Doesn't sound good, no? Now, the next topic for our today's discussion is understanding liability to pay taxes in certain cases. Let me just come to the relevant material page. Page number 20.2. This is a small topic. It doesn't take much time. I'll give you, we have roughly around another 35 minutes. I'll try to cover this topic in next 30 minutes. Let me come to my Excel to make you understand what is expected from this topic called liability to pay in certain cases. Now, before I answer this question, clarity, then conformity. The human psychology, the general mind always questions on these aspects. Was there a clarity in the law? Did the law confirm who has to pay this particular tax? Like, all of us get into the shoes of an advocate when it comes to the demand from a government office. When a notice comes, first and foremost ask, was there an authority for the officer to collect this particular tax? Was there a clarity in the law? Was this confirmed that so-and-so is the person responsible to pay that particular tax? Now, keeping this in mind, this particular chapter, liability to pay taxes in certain cases. Now, this chapter was framed keeping in mind all these psychological questions, which always gets tested in my court of law. When we go to court of law, we don't admit. Always we argue. We always fight. My lord, this is not determined. My lord, this is not explained. My lord, this was never was the intent of the lawmaker. Now, all these arguments have been set aside with this chapter, chapter 16, which deals with your liability to pay in certain cases. I'll give you a couple of examples to make you understand. Let's take first example. Mr. A, a businessman, is a well-to-do person. He has got a son. Say, he has got only child, say, Master B. Assuming that this particular child is mentally retarded. Now, it so happens, we come across the cases where there are people who are well-to-do off in the society. Unfortunately, when we look at the next generation, they are, God does not give all the necessary aspects to a child when they take birth in their life. And some reason they wouldn't adopt anyone and they are happy with that particular child alone. Now, assuming that Mr. A has got a well-to-do business and he has got this particular son called a child called Master B. Now, these cases, they have something called, they incorporate something called trust in the name of Master B. There will be a trustee appointed. to supervise and manage. Now, what happens here? As long as Mr. A is there, he'll take care of B. When A passes away, someone should be there to take care of B. Reason, they're mentally retarded, they need a special attention. And to take care of these people, they need to have some sort of financial support. So what does A do? He writes a will saying that all my properties, belongings, my estate gets transferred to a trust, where I nominate Master B as the beneficiary of this trust. And there are nominated trustees who have to run the trust. For a moment, assuming that this particular Mr. A has got various business activities. Say he has got immobile property for commercial purpose. Also, he has got some business units. Now, these properties will be managed, supervised by trustee. Who is getting the benefit of this? The benefit goes to Master B. What if the commercial rent which is collected for a moment, assuming per month the estate fetches 10 lakhs of monthly rent. On 10 lakhs, 1.8 lakhs GST has to be paid. What if there is a default by the trust? Now, should the government hold Master B as responsible, or should the government hold the trustee as responsible? How does the things work out? Now, this case, my section 85 comes and explains how to deal with this liability to pay. This is my example number 1. Now, moving forward, example number 2. This is very important, very, very important. All of us would have come across this phase of life in COVID. Unfortunately, 2021 is a disaster. Like 2020, the COVID phase 1, at least we would have experienced what is COVID, how it affects. Now it is come, it has gone out. There are a few deaths. COVID 2, phase 2, it has taken many people in our known circle. I would say this is a disaster. No, lack of oxygen, lack of hospitals, lack of bed. We've seen many people who have suffered. There were proprietary concerns. There were the business got stopped all of a sudden. Now, this example is a business cessation due to death of a proprietor. Now, what if there is a gentleman called Mr. A who happens to be the owner? This gentleman has got due to COVID, COVID didn't spare anyone in his family members. He has got only 2 kids called Master X, Master Y. Now, say Mr. A, he has he along with his wife, both of them have passed away. On the day when he passes away, the business comes to a cessation. This gentleman, till the date of death, assuming that there was no tax due, but during the process of audit and assessment, there is a tax demand of say 4 lakh. Now, question comes here. Will the GST officer have a right to go back to this minor child who happens to be the successor of the estate of Mr. A? Can the officer recover the money from these people? Now, this is all the questions which are put for test in this chapter 16 under this topic called liability to pay taxes. So these are the 2 examples which is there for your understanding from this particular topic. Very simple, very easy. Those aspects, the finest aspects, I'll quickly run through within the next 30 minutes to make you to understand how you guide, how you take care of the compliances under GST law. First aspect, section 85, transfer of business. Whenever there is a transfer of business, now I can transfer 100%, I can transfer the part. To the extent the transfer happened, all the risk and rewards of that compliance gets transferred to the transferee. I repeat, all the risk and rewards to the extent of transfer. I could have 100% transfer, I could have a slump sale, a part of the transfer. My tax assessed till the date of transfer, along with the transferor, transferee will be jointly and severally liable. So the provision says, section 85, the transferor along with transferee shall be jointly and severally liable to the extent of such transfer till the date of transfer. This is what my section 85 says. Now, so what I have to do? I have to pay the taxes till the date of transfer. And this determination may happen before transfer, may happen after the transfer. So my audit may happen before the transfer, audit happen after the transfer, whatever it is. In relation to transfer of your business, the transferor along with transferee will be jointly and severally responsible. If the transferee is continuing his own business, transferee has got his GST number. Whatever supply happened from the day of transfer, only on that he will be responsible. So prior to transfer, jointly and severally, the person who is transferred and the transferee to the extent of prior to transfer. So the business is carried on in his own GST number after transfer. Only that extent he will be responsible. Who? The transferee. Now, agent and principal, very quite understandable equation. Whatever agent is responsible, equally responsibility is on principal. Like example, in case of your supply of your what you call bata chapel, the responsibility of the agent till the sale happens, it will be on the principal along with the agent. Joint and severally in case of a principal and agent. So what happens in case of a merger? What happens in case of an amalgamation? I'll give this example by way of Excel, very easy to understand. Amalgamation or merger. Now, generally, in case of amalgamation or merger, like say, take example, Mrs. ABC and Co. Mrs. XYZ Private Limited. Both these entities decide to join their business, decides to join their business by way of a merger. Excel is not responding properly. So they decide and formulate a business, formulate something called Mrs. ABC XYZ Private Limited. Now, date of order, say 15th Jan 2021. Merger to be effective from say 1st Jan 2021. Now, there was an order passed by a court that 15th Jan 2021, order was passed on 15th Jan saying that from 1st Jan 2021, both the units to be joined together. So what if there's a purchase and sale between these two units? Students, just give me a minute. There's some problem with my Excel file. I'll just close the Excel file and open it back. Yes. So, what if this particular merger which took place, and so prior to merger, I have a transaction like ABC sells to this particular XYZ, also XYZ sells to this particular entity. So there is a two-way traffic. This two-way traffic happens from 1st Jan 2021 till 15th Jan 2021. So there was a court order where they say effective from 1st Jan 2021, these entities should be merged. Now from GST point of view, ABC supplied goods to XYZ or XYZ supplied goods to ABC. So this provision says that whatever has happened, don't worry. Whatever has happened, don't worry. We apply the provisions of this section 87 to confirm that till date of order, individual responsibility on such entity to prevail. They say that officially 1st Jan 2021, this entity called ABC Private Limited came into existence. However, like since the order was passed on 15th Jan, transactions between this period, which took place ABC to XYZ, XYZ to ABC, will be held to be as normal for holding the responsibility of respective assessees concerned. And they will be considered as a distinct person for such particular point in time. So what they say? It should be included in the turnover of respective companies. That is what section 87 talks about. Next. In case of a company which is on liquidation, most of practitioners who are into liquidation, they have this challenge. Companies which go for winding up, companies which go for insolvency, which go for liquidation, a painful activity. But this is one another promising career as on today, dealing with the liquidation process. So a company which is in liquidation, they'll appoint someone called liquidator. A company which is in winding up, they appoint someone called liquidator. This gentleman who is appointed as a liquidator by a court, he will communicate within 30 days to the commissioner, saying that, dear sir, I have been appointed as a liquidator. Before I put forth the process of liquidation, please let me know what taxes are due to be paid. So this commissioner, whatever intimation he gets in relation to a company, he does the settlement, and within a decent point in time, he determines what is the tax that needs to be paid. And that particular amount, he communicates to that liquidator. So what if there is a money which is due but not payable? There is no enough money in the company. In those cases where whatever tax, interest, penalty, not recoverable from the company, every person who happens to be a director during the period where this tax has been ascertained, they shall be jointly and severally be liable to pay such tax, interest, and penalty. Now, this is a draconian provision. If you remember, I was talking in some other session. Don't lend your name to a partnership firm as a partner. Don't lend your name to a company as a director just because you are having a professional qualification. Someone needs for the sake of count. Reason? All the risk and rewards get hanged on to the partners, to the directors in case something goes wrong. So in case of a liquidation where the money is not sufficient, the directors shall be held responsible to the extent of money which was to be paid but not paid. So what if I'm a director? I have proven to the satisfaction that there was no gross negligence or misfeasance during my tenure. I have taken enough care as a chairman, as a director. I have called for a professional. I got an independent audit done. I got an opinion examined for this particular transaction. What department has alleged on me to pay taxes not paid? I have taken enough precautions. How? Sir, I have taken a written opinion from a chartered accountant on a particular transaction. This particular transaction was held by the department to be a taxable activity. The professional advised me not to pay tax, department is advising. So when I have proof of that sort, I can plead saying that I will not be held responsible in case of a liquidation. Liability of directors of a private limited company. Now, continuation to what we have discussed in 88, this provision says that in case of a tax, penalty or interest which is due from a private company in respect of goods or services for any period which cannot be recovered from the company, this particular money will be recovered from a person who happens to be a director during that particular tenure. Now, please remember, multiple provisions have been casted on the director, on the partner, on the trustee. Wherever there is a default during a tenure, where the taxes cannot be paid by that entity. Now, continuation. So, what if it is a public company? Now, there is a saving. Law says that I don't see any misfeasance. I don't see any tax evasion in case of a public company. Reason, the provisions connected with public company are much safeguarded compared to a private limited company. So they say that a company which is converted to a public company, which happens to be a private company, where there is a demand in relation to prior to conversion from private to a public company, if there is a demand, those provisions are not applicable on the directors, which has been now converted to be a public company. So there is a saving that any company which got converted from private company to a public company during the tenure of that private company, and those directors happen to be directors in the public company, then the provisions of subsection 1 are not applicable. Means there is a saving in case of a public company. However, there is one silver lining saying that any penalty which is imposed on a personal capacity, that cannot be saved. Like example, you recollect section 132, certain offences, there was supply of goods without issuing a tax invoice. Now, those cases, when there is a personal responsibility, penalty of 1 lakh for a moment imposed on a director who happens to be a director of a private limited company. This provision says that I can absolve the directors of a public company, but not a personal liability of a director. So any liability which has been posted on a personal capacity, there is no excuse, it has to be paid for sure. Similar provision to partnership firm, they say any responsibility of tax, interest, penalty not recoverable from a partnership firm shall be recovered jointly and severally from a partner. Jointly and severally from all the partners. Who are the partners? Partners of the firm. Where? In that particular tenure. Now, this provision, this slide, I don't think many of you would have imagined that there is a provision called section 90. Look at this provision, students. Where a partner retires from the firm, he shall intimate the retirement of the firm to the commissioner by a notice. And such partner shall be liable to pay tax, interest or penalty due up to the date of his retirement, whether determined or not on the date. Now, if you have communicated till the date of communication, you shall be held responsible. The date you have retired, they ceases your responsibility. So what if I forgot? I have not communicated. If you have not communicated, your liability continues to remain in existence. Next. Liability in case of a guardian, trustee, etc. I have given one example where Mr. A appoints a trust where the benefits of the trust should go to his son who happens to be a mentally retarded son. So in these cases, the government has thought well ahead and said, we cannot do anything of that particular minor or incapacitated person. Any tax due shall be recovered from the guardian or the trustee. The government is very due. They have their consciousness. What they have said, I cannot catch hold of the trustee, sorry, the minor or the incapacitated person because they are incapable. That's the reason a trust was formed. In those cases, any breach of law, we will hold responsibility on the guardian or the trustee and not the beneficiary person. Next. In relation to bankruptcy, we have discussed that the liquidator, who is the person who has been appointed as, this is the case of a death. We had discussed this case of a death of a proprietor. Now, this is very important. If a business is carried on by a legal representative or any other person, now there is a death. Post to the death, the legal representative, successor, is carrying on a business. Either business is carried by a legal representative or other person, then such legal representative or such other person shall be liable to pay tax or interest or penalty due from the person deceased. So, in case of a death of a person and this business continues, clause A, the business is carried on. Whoever is carrying on the business, that person, transferee. If you recollect section 25 students, the registered person is transferring the business. Proprietor transferred his business to son or daughter. So proprietor is registered, the son or daughter need to be registered because the transferor is registered. The same way, on occasion of death of a proprietor, that business which is carried on by a legal representative, they shall be held responsible. So what if clause B? If the business carried on by a person is discontinued, why? Minor, or there's no person to carry on the business. Whether before or after his death, his legal representative shall be liable to pay. Who is responsible? Legal representative. Out of the estate of the deceased. So when there is a death of a proprietor, there's a estate of the deceased. Whatever estate is going to the legal representative, to the extent which the estate is capable of meeting the charge. So whatever charge has been created, to the extent of the charge, I have to pay. So what happens to the balance? They will not hold responsible to the legal representative. Assuming the proprietor has got a land which is worth around say 50 lakhs. Out of the business, there is a demand which was ascertained to the tune of say 75 lakhs. Now, because the land was transferred to the legal representative, the government recovered only to the extent of 50 lakhs, balance 25 lakhs. They cannot touch or they cannot demand anything from the legal representative, where the business is discontinued. So these are the finest aspects which you need to keep into mind when you are advising, when you are dealing with the cases of this death or seizure of a particular business. So what if So what if there's a HUF or association of persons? The property is held in the name of a HUF or a AOP. And this property is partitioned among the interested people. Like example, there is a immovable property on which there is a commercial rents they receive. Some reason the HUF has been dissolved. And all the members of the HUF, they have taken portion of the immovable property. Those cases, what they say, wherever a demand comes on the immovable property, all the members shall be jointly and severally be liable up to the date of partition. So in case of the immovable property, any demand comes, taxes to be paid but not paid. So just because HUF has been diluted, it doesn't absolve the responsibility of the taxes. It continues to remain with the people who have partitioned with the property. So this is the importance of this chapter 16, where the government dues continue to the descendants, successors. Next. In case of a partnership firm, every person who was a partner jointly and severally be liable to pay tax, interest, or penalty at the time of dissolution. Now, so what if a partner who resigned but he failed to intimate to the commissioner? Till the intimation happens, his continuation of liability holds good. So in case of a partnership firm, I strongly recommend, how do you protect the interest of the partner? You file an amendment to the partners. Like you have something called amendment of core fields, amendment of non-core fields. There is something called authorized persons list. So in authorized persons list, XYZ partnership firm, 3 partners, X, Y, Z. So X retains because of age, Y and Z decide to continue to carry on. X name should be removed from the authorized persons list the day when he has resigned. Like as per the law, within 15 days, I have to go and make an amendment to the registration certificate. So that day I have made an amendment, the liability of X ceases. This is what we need to keep in mind. Section 90 read with section 93. Now, there's a case of your business which is carried on by a guardian, or a trustee, what we have discussed earlier. In case any sort of non-compliance, what or the beneficiary, whoever is liable to pay the tax, that shall be passed on to the respective guardian, or it will be passed on to the respective trustee to pay the respective taxes. Now, these are the provisions which are connected to person responsible to pay tax but not paid. Let me see if there are any questions so far which are not taken. Another 5 minutes. There's one question from Namita. So what if there is a XYZ Incorporated, which is a foreign company, obtains an advance ruling for a subsidiary? No, Namita. XYZ can obtain an advance ruling only for XYZ. They cannot obtain on behalf of someone else. The question itself stops over here. When I file an application, I have to file an application for myself. I cannot file application for others. Like example, I happens to be a non-resident. Namita cannot file an application on behalf of Praveen. It is barred. Next question from Namita. Sir, if audit is happened after transfer, the period prior to transfer, why transfer is also liable to pay tax penalty as he was not running the business at that time? See, when there is a transfer, all the risk and rewards of that particular business, all the responsibility, like see, when the transfer of business happened, closing stock, input tax credit, the benefit of that particular business, all that risk and rewards are getting transferred to that transferee. So transferee is also bound to that particular period. Generally, whenever there is a transfership, you have to get a permission from the GST officer. See that I'm transferring this particular business. When I transfer, I ensure that the main person gets diluted. Whoever is getting into the limelight, that person will give an undertaking that all the risk and rewards shall be transferred to this particular transferee. So in case of this slump sale, or in case of this business where there is a hiving off, they get a permission from the GST officer, part of their liquidation process. They get an undertaking saying that whatever dues are responsible by the principal company will be taken care by the new company which comes into existence. So this is a regular process. There's the next question. Sir, in section 86, agent is a para 3 of schedule 1. Yes, agent is forming part of the responsibility of the, jointly, separately. If agent fails, principal has to come and protect the interest of the revenue. In section 87, registration certificate cancelled on 1st Jan 2021. So how transaction is included in ABC? I'll come to my Excel file to make you understand this example. Fantastic question, Namita. See here, when the registration certificate is given on 15 Jan, Namita, RC of Mrs. ABC and Co. and Mrs. XYZ Private Limited shall be cancelled from 15 Jan 2021. Now the question asked by Namita is, so when there is a merger of companies, the order was passed on 15 January, which has to be made effective from 1st Jan 2021. So when there is a transaction between these two companies, how do I cancel the registration certificate issued? So technically, Namita, my registration certificate will be cancelled on the day the order was passed. So it will be cancelled from this date, Namita. So the date of the order for merger passed on 15th Jan. So on 15th Jan, the registration certificate of ABC, XYZ Private Limited, both will be cancelled. This is how you need to understand the date of order, Namita. Namita is asking this question. So in case of property received from the deceased was sold by the legal representative and used up all the money and left empty-handed, what happens then? Now, this is a tricky question. What happens practically? Naveen has a right question. Sir, there was a proprietor who was doing his business. This proprietor met with a death, like assuming COVID time. Now, to meet his hospital expenses, the minor or whoever is the legal representative, they sold the property and they have met with this expenses. So, property was sold for 50 lakhs. They spent 10 lakhs on medical expenses. They appropriated entire 10 lakhs to medical expenses. The 40 lakhs was left out. Whatever money is left over, Naveen, that money will be appropriated for the tax demand. Assuming the tax demand is 60 lakhs. Only 40 lakhs is available. To the extent of 40 lakhs will be made good, left with no choice. Right? So this is the last day for me to handle in today's session. So students, let us stop our discussion for today. We will meet back again on 3rd of this month. Till then, good night, goodbye, Jai Hind.